This is a McKillop podcast. Welcome to So What? We join Michael and Trevor from the balcony, like Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets, as they explore the last episode's big ideas and why they matter.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to So What? The Balcony View. Michael and I would like to welcome you as we dive into From the Balcony as Statler and Waldorf from the Muppet show. I'm getting hairy eyebrows as I get older, like those two old gentlemen, of becoming an ally accomplishment as we explore Michael Brennan's episode that we just taped here. And so, Michael, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing just fine. Had a lovely weekend. Beautiful Saturday weather-wise. It was great. How about you?
I can't complain. We had a little rain here in the area, which is lovely, and as the flowers come out and everything, and the apple trees are blooming, and the native, well, they're not native, but the cherry trees that grow in this climate are flowering, and just hoping there's enough bumblebees and bees to pollinate them.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I know where we were on Saturday. We were just blown away with all the crocus, wild crocus that were just coming forth. Just that lovely purple color. It was breathtaking. So it was kind of good.
You know, I love spring. I just love it. Now, where do we want to start with Michael Brennan's episode and on becoming allies and accomplices?
Yeah, there's a whack of threads in and through what he had to say. So it's difficult to really narrow it down. I think one thing that really resonated with me is, and it's maybe just because of my own story, but just this process of, some backward, country feller, like myself back in the day, maybe still am, who was just redneck and had their identity in redneck, right? And the transition, how someone like that can make that move to being somebody who strives to the best of their good intention to be an ally, to be an accomplice. And just reflecting back, as Michael spoke, just on little bits of my own journey in how that happened. And I think I don't like to think back then because, I was certainly had some really regressive and not very nice ideas, but it struck me that a lot of those ideas were stereotypes that were handed to me in culture. Things that I'd grown up with, different ideas of what it was to be a man, to be a guy, what it was to be Christian or a person of faith, all those things. So, I mean, in a real sense, I don't really remember growing up knowing anybody that was queer. And so it was really easy for being gay to be an issue.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't until I started to engage and have some sort of meaningful contact with someone close to me who is gay.
Yeah.
That things began to shift from an issue to a person, right? And it just personified what it is for gay people to be people. Just thinking about just that journey for me, and even for some of my friends, what's their journey towards becoming an ally, and really central to it all is someone in their life.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, engaging them, and in some levels, I suspect being very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And
and
I want to be careful because I don't want to put all the onus on on these folks to have to be brave where I can't be, right? I don't know. I just know that relationality, that humanization was a big deal for me in my journey.
Well, I resonate with that, but from a different perspective, Michael. I grew up small town too, or on a farm.
Yeah.
And our family voted progressive conservative, which existed back then, dating myself here in Alberta.
Sure.
And then I remember the first time I heard the word gay was, I think I was in grade 5 or 6, and other male friends called me gay. Mm-hmm. And it was, I didn't know what the term meant. I had no clue what it was, but it was used like in a bullying, demeaning way, like it was supposed to hurt me. I didn't really get it. And then I went home and asked my dad what that term meant, and he got out the dictionary.
Sure.
That was how he wanted to explore that with me. And then, read in the Oxford Dictionary the meaning of what gay meant, which was back then was very like two men having sexual intercourse. And actually, sexual intercourse was sort of my dad had to know how far he wanted to go in the birds and bees with me. Sure. But then it's like, and it didn't really bother me. Like, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's, it's a definition. I didn't feel any judgment either way, but it was like the way my friends use it, that was bad. Mm-hmm. And then I also grew up in the United Church of Canada, which in Canada is a little more open-minded church, even back in the 80s. And in 1988, a seminal day in the United Church of Canada was that it passed at its higher levels that regardless of your sexual orientation, you could be ordained a minister, and you're a whole human being, and you could be a member of the church. Like they went through, and I remember when that happened in our little church, that a third of the people left, and I remember saying, I don't get it. Why does it matter who you love? But you're also right. What changed for me too is later in my life in seminary when I had folks come out to me of their sexual orientation. But for me, it was just, well, that's just part of you as a human being. So I guess I come from a different perspective. It's like, I always had trouble understanding is why do people want to stereotype and hate and demean who people are. So for instance, how do you think, we had Michael talk about, culture, for you, from your perspective, how did culture or stereotypes inform you, and what was it like to deconstruct that? I hope that's not too personal, Michael.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, my experience growing up was somewhat similar to yours. So, I was the kid with big feelings, that I get really excited about some stuff. I don't know what label they would put on me, but I was moved by things that were sad, and I was moved by things that were happy.
Yeah.
I still did the sports stuff. I still tried to do the rough and tumble stuff, but, I liked all sorts of different music. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that was the weapon of choice from folks in my schoolyard, and I'm not sure if they themselves really understood what the heck they were saying. Mm-hmm. They just thought that it was a zinger and they were using it. So in lots of ways, I can see where in my life I doubled down on this. I call it knuckle dragging now, but this machoism. Yeah. Right. And growing up as a kid in the 80s and looking back now, what our role models were. I mean, it's no surprise there had to be a Me Too movement, right? Because all the coming of age movies that had young men in it, right? It was all them trying to seduce, trick, cajole the pretty young girl into some sort of physical intimacy. Yeah. And so those were the role models, who were the cool guys. And I keep thinking about even the James Bonds of the day, right? Yeah. It was all about, bedding as many women as you could, right? And he was a man's man.
Yeah.
And so for me, a lot of that's what it was to be a man, to be big and strong and a bully. And I remember that, from say grade 9 younger, I was really bullied. But then I got bigger and I got stronger. And the funny thing is that in my effort not to be bullied, to be a man, be a guy's guy, I became a bully too. And, we weren't a religious family by any stretch of imagination, but if it served my hate, my position, I wasn't adverse to throwing out butchered chunks of Bible or whatever some preacher says, right? As an air of self-righteousness from my bulliness. But I think about, how things started to change. And that's when I reconnected with a cousin. And my cousin and their husband, they've, the way I put it, they've been married as long as Andrea and I have. However, it wasn't legal for them to be married until 2 years after.
Yeah.
I still count the 2 years before. And I remember being at my grandmother's funeral, and I was just cold. I was quite fundamentalist.
Yeah.
And I was just cold
Yeah.
and self-righteous and sharp, thinking that somehow I was doing Jesus a favor, that somehow I was being faithful, holding on to these scriptures and so forth. And my cousin and their husband were nothing but gracious to me. They didn't stick around for more of it. But there was always a generosity. And so that got me to thinking, when I realized, like, holy smokes, they've been in a committed married relationship for, I don't know, at this time, 20 years. The same as Andrea, is probably longer than that.
Yeah.
It started to push back against the stereotypes that I was told that is not about marriage or anything. It's just about being amorous and Epicurean and just debauchery and so forth. And that was the exact opposite that I saw in my cousin's life. I saw committed relationships, and that really began to punch some holes. And then my experience, and it's weird how things happened. You just keep running into more people, it seems. And my experience was the same. It's like, holy crap, these people are human beings. And I really like them. And they lead good lives, and they're respectable folks. Right? Not at all like what I've been taught. And so based on that experience, I'm looking back on what I've been raised in culture, but also at that time when I was in the church. And it's like, I got to do some work here because two ain't jiving. And that began a significant theological deconstruct for me.
Yeah, I remember reading a book came up in the early 2000s. The book is called, we'll see if we can get the title for the show notes, called Scared Straight.
Okay.
So part of it is like, as I listened to your story and also Michael's story and what he shared, is that part of the deconstruction, at least for my part, for my journey, is that we're living in a system in which I'm a cis, straight, white male, I own it, that's who I am, is that we're scared straight. Like, the system also binds us. The system that we're in, it binds us, and it also binds other marginalized groups, like a whole bunch of marginalized groups, including queer people. But part of the work of becoming an ally, and I like to say an accomplice, is actually we have to do some of our own deconstruction and and get loose from being scared straight. And the being straight is in the book, straight is a certain type of straightness. It comes with a whole bunch of cultural rules, cultural norms, what it means to, and even it defines gender then as really a prison. It's a construct, as we know, and I'm not trying to make up some weird theories. Like there's in science and there's like hundreds. There's like some say there's 73 genders. Some there's over 100 genders. But we're living in this system of being scared straight. Then I put onto myself a whole bunch of things of what it means to be a straight person. But then we also, what we don't own in ourselves, we project onto other marginalized groups. So it's like, we won't. So for instance, scared straight, we won't actually own our sexuality, our sexual energy. We won't own just like what it means to be in a human body and desire touch and intimacy and playfulness and wildness. And so we'll say that's bad because that's what the system says. And then we'll throw that onto other groups.
Yeah.
And so it's like that deconstructing like the stereotypes of what it means to be a man I'm still doing it, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
And it's like, what does it mean to to have co-liberation with everybody, not just like be like an ally being like a hero for the other group, or that's what us males do, is like we want to fix things and be heroes. Like a good ally is I'm going to save you, but instead it's like I need to liberate myself too.
Yeah, there's so much in what you said as you were talking about, just even our own sexuality and our good old Puritan thread that works its way through the culture, is this idea that sex is dirty and bad. Leave it for somebody you love, right? And it, and that in itself creates a whole bunch of dysfunction within heteronormative and homosexual relationships, right? Like it's just almost this inherent kind of shame, and it also brings in some power stuff.
Yeah.
But and I like you're talking about maybe I can't remember the number you used, 73, 78 distinct kind of genders in this spectrum, and that just reveals our penchant to we want to classify and categorize everything. And I guess where I'm at in my own deconstruction around gender is there's really, I'm not sure that we can have those nice clear sections as much as it is just kind of a spectrum of blending and mixing and so forth. And that seems to make sense to me as I'm trying to figure out for myself what being a man is like. I can't be, the jacked up truck, hunting, testicles hanging from the back of my pickup truck kind of guy. That's just not who I am. I do like hard rock music, but I also really like musicals. I love stories that make me cry. I love tenderness. I love mercy. I love beauty, and not in a way that I have to possess the beauty, but just to be able to appreciate beauty. But all those things culturally for me growing up are all contrary to what it is to be male.
Yes.
So, Michael made, well, I don't know if he outright came out and said it, but he talked about the queerness of God, right? Particularly when he was talking about, mother God, father God, and wrestling with those binaries. And the thing that really struck me is, he said some people might say, when I'm brokenhearted and so forth, what I really need is the tenderness and the nurturing of mother God. And then he stops himself and he says, But wait, who's to say that Father God can't be nurturing and tender as well? And just how we extrapolate those kind of constructs onto who God is. And I'm not sure that God has female parts or male parts. I'm not sure that God has parts, right? And I'm just not sure that a binary makes sense when we're talking about God. I think it's unhelpful.
Yeah. Well, I've personally moved away from gender and God. That's just my personal journey. And I also think we have to be sort of honest in the Christian lineage. I like to say lineage, or you could call it tradition. We've done a lot of harm with gender and views using scripture to both suppress and dominate women who identify as women and queer people, indigenous people, the earth. And so I think the term father for a lot of people, it just has so much baggage. And it would be nice to reclaim it. I'm not against reclaim it. And then mother, well, that gets people going too. But then I think, well, the mystery of the divine has to be include and be much bigger than our constructs. So it's like, personally, I like to move beyond gender and God, just because I think...
Just not sure it's helpful.
Yeah, I don't know if it's helpful for me. I know a lot of people who like that personal relationship, second person personal relationship might be something that they need. And so like I said in my own, well, go for it. If that brings you life and you're not hurting somebody else and you're not using it for power or violence or abuse, then, and you're not requiring everybody else to do it. Yeah. You're not going to fundamentalism, then, Bob's your uncle, as they say in Australia.
Sure.
But it's like, personally, I don't find it, because gender, like culturally, gender shifts so much, or what's perceived as gender. Like, for instance, I was thinking, when I was growing up, I remember Tom Selleck and Magnum P.I.
Yeah.
And so here is a guy that was like, he had hair on his chest. And, but then, what's shifted in our culture, if you look at all the images of men, and so I'm a hairy guy, just to be honest.
Okay.
But then what happened was, I noticed a shift as a kid, teenager, and even later on, that actually hair is not, right now, if you look at the male image, do you see hair on males anymore?
No. Lots of waxing.
Yeah, so like hair, it's actually, you're not masculine if you have hair anymore. Like you're more like a freak, or and just look at how the feminine form over thousands of years have changed, if we're going to be binary here, because and then as Michael said, at first when I heard him talking about the stereotypes of trans people, I think he was being more in a teacher mode. But it was like, then we start stereotyping what trans people, what beauty is. Like we say men with hair aren't beautiful anymore. They're not sexy. 40 years ago, hair was very sexy on a man. It's like, and then women's body parts, are changed sexiness culturally. And then we throw this onto trans people and lesbians and gay people, bisexual people. Like we make these really crude stereotypes of what beauty is, and
exactly,
or if it's all right to say, sexual attraction is. And it's like, wow, we're really pickle ourselves, as I like your term. We were pickled.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about this artist, poet, comedian, who I stumbled on just a few months ago, to be honest, on TikTok or Instagram. Alok, and trans, and their comedy is funny. But what's caught my attention is their sit down interviews with various people, and just the deep wisdom, right? That they share. Just, really just kind of gently and firmly calling out the straight cis fragility, right? And just saying, we really need to think about and figure out ways where, these young men who are locked in this place where they don't feel like they can express pain, right? Their disillusionment, their deep hurt, their deep sorrow, and advocating for places for them to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how that goes to what you're saying. You look at Alok and they make fun of themselves, calling themselves, a big hairy deal, right? And and they are dressed in their strapless dresses, and just totally, I don't know if it's appropriate rocking it, but the juxtaposition of their hairiness is really interesting. It's pointy to me.
Yes.
And I find the more that I listen to them and hear their heart, and just the uniqueness of their humanity, the less their appearance seems to matter.
Isn't that what
I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No. The less their appearance becomes a point of projection or domination or like their whole so like what's happened, like as a cis straight white guys, old white guys, we've had so much privilege, like our voice is automatically given privilege and we don't even know it, and people below us are trained to give us privilege to stay safe, because we briefly talked about in there, the term that we use is patriarchy, and maybe people, woke, woke. No, this is not woke. This is like a sociological thing. It's not. Maybe people call it woke because we're not trying to exclude anybody, or we're not trying to dominate anybody, but like as a term, patriarchy is saying that cis straight white guys are given privilege over everybody else, and it's culturally ingrained, and it can be abused. There's violence, and if you look at the stats, then at the top of the pay scale are us, white straight males often. You look at the privilege, it's like the whole bunch of stuff. But what I'm going with this is that in that system, there's only certain ways you can be to get that privilege. And the way I think, if we're right, the way we're talking about it is to be, as a cis straight white male that wants to get to the top of the pyramid, you need to sort of almost be have a bully. Call me on this, almost bullying. You have to be a certain type of man. Like, for instance, I love knitting. I was called gay for that in another place I was in the United States.
Sure.
I love knitting. Does that? I like to cook. I like to garden. I like colors, but I also am very attracted to others that aren't like me. But in that system, we're sort of put in these boxes.
Yeah, and if you stick your toe out of those boxes, they're going to whack you.
Yes.
To get you back into that box, or some segment will whack you.
And then also, the sacred readings of religion are used to keep us in those boxes.
Yeah. So it's totally anachronistic, right? Yeah. So we're ripping that culture and slamming it into modern day and saying this is the way it's supposed to be because it was divinely ordered this way. Or we're taking our culture and putting it on that ancient stuff, and it didn't mean any of that. Which we were sort of doing with Michael when he brought up some Christian, the Hebrew scriptures, but we call them the clobber texts, right? Sure.
If people know what that means, but the clobber texts are like people take a little piece of sacred scripture out and they put it on a big baseball bat and then they go and whack people with it to get back into a box or to actually not claim who they are. And we don't have time to go over the clobber texts, but but they've been totally, like I said in the thing, the documentary 1946 is just, I've watched it 3 times. I cry every time I watch it. It's just so profound of a story of a lesbian daughter with a fundamentalistic father who's a pastor, and their struggle to claim what it means to be a human being and to get off the mantle of the toxicity of the way Christianity has been used to, and I think we need to always say sorry over and over, used to oppress, abuse, use violence, like Matthew Shepard in Wyoming is an output of that, the queer community. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss of words now.
Yeah. Oh, And that patriarchy, and you alluded to it at the beginning, you're talking about like, woke alert, right? I don't exactly know how this happened, but I think patriarchy is just kind of one of those suitcase kind of terms that describes a whole bunch of things. And it's not necessarily designed to hang the sins and the bad behavior of people that came before us on your neck personally.
Yes.
Right? I think what it's intended to do is to open a dialogue to say, hey, look, this is what's happened. These are kind of the systems that are happening, and how they're kept alive. And then challenging us to look at those things and think, not in a shameful way, but more in a constructive way, asking, how am I complicit? And what kinds of things can I do to make things more fair, more equitable, more inclusive? But there seems to be this shame message.
Yes.
And so I think, as long as it has that shame message, I think it shuts people down, right? Because nobody wants to deal with that or look at it.
No. Yeah. It's really coming to terms, as we talked with Michael Brennan and his journey of becoming a better ally and maybe even an accomplice. I just like if I could share it quickly. I love this definition from, I think it's good for you listeners. You can tune it off, but it comes from Colleen Clemens, and she says this: an ally will mostly engage in activism by standing with an individual groups that are marginalized. An accomplice will focus more on dismantling the structures that oppress an individual group, and such work will be directed by the marginalized stakeholders in the group. So I think like that's an important trend as we're diving into this, is like both are needed. I don't want to say one's duality again here, but I love moving towards, like, an ally can fall into this domination theory, or like I'm on a structure, like I'm the hero, I'm going to save you, I know what you need. And that can cause unintentional harm. Well, an accomplice is saying, you know what? I need to hear from you. I need to hear from you what you need me to do, instead of me telling you what I need to do for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, for instance, as an accomplice, I've heard from different people on sessions and stuff, it's like, you cis straight white guys, and this goes to the fragility. What is that term you use? The fragility of cis straight white guys.
Yeah.
Is that actually, I need you to actually work on your own racism or your own genderism or your own this or that, instead of asking me to do the work for you. So it's sort of where you're like, you need to listen. We don't want you to do that. And I think I really thought Michael was trending in that direction of, to really love someone is to listen to someone. And like he listened to his students.
Yeah.
And listening to them changed him. And just like your story too.
Yeah, I mean, it really stirs up a caring, an empathy in a sense. But I'm resonating with the whole ally and accomplice thing. I think that maybe ally could very well be the step on the way to accomplice.
Yes.
But I noticed, like, you'd even recently, and some of the work that I do, just organizationally, I think that I could help this one particular group. And I realized after a meeting last week that just because, I can help address these certain things doesn't necessarily mean that they want me to.
Yeah.
And that there might be more going on than what I expect. So it was a bit of a humbling butt spank, if you know what I mean. Like, it just it's like, okay, cool your jets, Mike.
Yeah.
But it's coming out of being well intentioned and wanting to help.
Yes.
Right. But it revealed to me that, I've got some more work to do on my privilege. And if some of these other issues are more important to the people who I'm trying to serve, then I need to listen to that.
Yeah.
And let things happen the way they're going to happen.
Well, in a way, to work on this privilege, it brings up, I think, grief in a way, because to work on our privilege, my privilege, is to actually have to let go of it and the benefits it brings.
Yeah.
And to have the self-awareness. And I wonder if that's why people, when we talk about patriarchy, in some ways it could feel like an impersonal attack. And it's to dismantle those structures means that there's going to be changes, because it's so easy for our voices to be central. It's sort of like a dear friend of mine who's in the queer community says, if you're always feeling comfortable, then like, say if you go to a religious community, if you're always feeling comfortable, that's probably because it's your story that's being told all the time.
Sure.
And are you willing to be uncomfortable to hear another story?
Yeah, no, that's really great. Side note, maybe a primer for a future episode. Just connected with Adam Clark, a liberation theologian from the United States, and they've agreed to join us on the podcast. And part and parcel of that liberation theology is the view from below, right? Instead of the privilege of religion, of faith from above.
Yes.
And it gets down to the stories that we tell.
Yes.
So people without privilege tell very different stories.
Yes.
Than people with privilege.
Yes. And like we've been immersed I've been immersed my whole life in the stories of privilege.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just everywhere.
What do you?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, just go ahead, Michael.
No, what do you think about the idea that we can use our privilege to advocate on behalf of those without privilege as a means or a justification for maintaining our privilege?
I think that's sometimes what an ally is, to be honest. I mean, an ally can use their privilege, which they still have, to actually talk to people in power that the marginalized may not have. They can do things with less fear of getting arrested sometimes or having violence enacted on them. Like they can also talk to people who might be on the spectrum of allyship, like they might be actually on the other side where they're fighting against the marginalized, and so they have those inroads. So, there's nothing wrong with it, but then how do you come to a point where, you're willing to let go of your privilege, to let the marginalized, like this is dismantling systems.
Yeah.
And actually being a participant in dismantling the system that has given you a great privilege. Because, if you don't dismantle the system, like constructs of gender, constructs of power, like we make these things up and then we give consent at a very low level. Like we're always consenting to stuff, but somehow we never think we can just change. We can change it like that. So I think that would be my answer to you, is that it's this ongoing evolution of love, to actually just be people who love instead of be people who have privilege and power on various degrees of a ladder.
Yeah. So a lot of curiosity and a lot of courage, in a sense.
Yeah.
To be able to ask those big questions of ourselves and our institutions, and to deal with the consequences of asking those.
Yeah.
Because I think Michael Brennan said in this episode, is that when, and we talked about already in this episode, that when you start to challenge the box or step out of the box, regardless, you're gonna get whacked.
Well, the system, that's basic system theory, is that systems resist and sabotage change because we all like homeostasis. And sometimes it can be benign and unconscious, and other times it's very deliberate and violent. And so, you could lose your job, you can lose relationships, you can lose your faith community, you can lose friends.
So, and I guess that also just brings me to, a story that he was talking about one of his students who was physically bullied in the school hallway, right? And, he intervened and stood up for this student, and his student's response was, well, nobody ever saw me, nobody ever stopped that before. And then he would go on talking about cruciform love, and we had him tease that out a little bit. But what he's getting at was this whole idea of co-suffering love, and that as allies and accomplices, we still have the privilege to wake up tomorrow morning and decide not to be an ally or an accomplice.
That's right.
But for our queer friends, they don't have that choice. They go to bed gay, they wake up gay. They go to bed trans, they wake up trans. And just how that call of allyship and accompliceness, and if we really do aspire to love, that means standing with, even through the painful parts, and co-suffer.
Well, it's really the question: are we really willing to put our beingness, our actions, our thoughts, our heart, our love, on the line, standing side by side, not one in front or behind,
right?
To find, and I still go back to this because it's co-liberation. Even though I'm a bit more privileged, I'm actually oppressed too. I'm oppressed in my privilegedness. I'm oppressed in my own sexuality. I'm oppressed in my own body imagery. I'm oppressed in what it means to be a human being because I'll put myself in some type of weird construct of maleness or whatever. Yeah. So it's how do we go together? But I have a bit more privilege, so I can be more daring if I wish. And you're right, I can go to bed and I don't have to worry about my safety, right? I don't have to worry about prejudice or medical appointments or family members or religious groups or all that, or the government, the governments are, and being scapegoated. And so, but if we do nothing, what does that say about us?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not love.
Yeah.
And I really think that love does have feet, that love is a verb in a sense, and that, if we genuinely care about people and big ideas about dignity and equitable inclusion of everybody, that you got to stand up. We got to stand up.
Yes. Yeah. We have to stand up.
And sometimes that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have our allies might have our stories of what that's caused us.
Well,
but the reality is, we can choose tomorrow.
that's right. I think as an ally, an accomplice, what we have to do is check our ego at the door.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're
but wouldn't you agree that it still sucks when you take a hit? Like when I had when I had to surrender my license. It sucked.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It does. No. Yeah. It can be terrible. Like I don't want, it's your story to share, so I don't really want to share it, but your story is of being ostracized, then deconstructing, so to be an ally and an accomplice is a process of, it's a deconstruction process, if that makes sense. It's like, to really show up. That's what I mean by check your ego at the door. It's like, am I doing this so people say I'm great? Like, look at you. You're being so wonderful. You're great. Am I looking for the marginalized to prop up my ego? Like, am I coming in there to be the hero, the knowledge bearer, the holy person, whatever it is? Or am I being an ally accomplice because I see the dignity of another human earthling being, and I believe that they deserve to be who they are regardless, and I deserve to be who I am regardless. And together, if we can do that, we create a different world.
Sure.
Like that's what I mean by check your ego. It's like I notice sometimes it's like, well, like it's so easy, and the ego's, that's sort of a pejorative term, but it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I wanted to say something snarky about folks that are content for the fullness of their activism to be on their keyboards. But that might be what they can muster.
Sure.
Where they're at in their journey.
There's lots of ways to be an ally accomplice, from on the front lines to giving money, to support, to the keyboard, like you said. Like it's, everybody's needed.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good Statler or Waldorf. We do need.
Sure.
I have to get the. But as we come,
we need some snark.
As we come to the end, like, is there anything that you feel we've missed or you want to highlight as we sign off for today, and thank Michael Brennan for his podcast, and I thank Michael, you too, just for this dialogue. It helps me to unpack and to explore to go where we're with this. There's so much here.
Yeah. I think for me, as we've been certainly the last few minutes, we're talking about allyship and accomplice, and we're helping and partnering with this group. One of the things that has not been lost on me personally is the gift that I have received time and time again from my queer friends. I've got one in mind, and through their bravery and through their learning to find their voice and their feet, to be more authentically who they are in the world, was a gift to me, and that it helps me has been in the works of freeing me to be more authentically who I am, where I can start to say, I don't need to be that image of male. I don't need to be that image of even a progressive Christian. But but just to be more authentically who I am, in touch with the way that I see the world, my often twisted sense of humor, my big feelings, my empathy and my sensitivity, all those things that for lots of my life I was told was an embarrassment, was a weakness, and what have you. And the gift of my friend Jace, just to be their authentic, brave self, really has been a gift for me.
Yeah.
And so here I was thinking that, I'm here to help.
Yes.
And yada, yada, yada. And through relationship, I've discovered gift upon gift of relationship with my friends.
I totally concur. I've had a similar experience where I've seen friends and acquaintances in the queer community who, through everything, have claimed their authentic identity in their sexual expression, in their gender expression, in their sexual attraction spectrum, and it inspires and pushes me to say, well, can I just live as me without all these labels and just like dance in me instead of dancing in a box with chains on.
Yeah. Fear of getting beaten back into that box.
Yeah.
Oh, there's lots of gift.
There
My
is.
Goodness. So much beauty to be discovered.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you who are listening today. If you want to like and subscribe on all our different platforms, we're expanding them out to more. We'd love that. We'd love to hear any questions or comments that you have. You can send them to sowhat@mckillopunited.ca, at sowhat@mckillopunited.ca. And also thank you to everybody behind the scenes that makes this possible. Funding and the work of Jim. And we just appreciate you all.
Yeah. Shout out to Rebekah.
Yeah.
Okay. Our voice talent.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, we'll see you next time, Michael. Have a great week.
Look forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Take care, friend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you are enjoying this podcast, please like it, subscribe, consider rating it, and sharing it with family and friends. This podcast is produced by McKillop, Living Sacred Relationships.